We're going to talk about the year that was so far, because so much can still happen. We still have a week and a half left in 2017.
We do.
And the way things have been happening in Toronto, a lot could happen.
But you know, Kevin, it's the times. I mean, things change so quickly now in everything, in business, in technology, in people's lives. The weather affects things that go on in the city. So when you say things can happen in 24 hours, you're sure right about that. How about 24 minutes?
This city, am I correct in saying that this has been a year almost of another coming of age of Toronto on the technical side? We've seen coming of ages. We saw them through the 70s, we saw them through the 80s, but we really saw Toronto's Silicon Valley.
Yeah, here's what's happening. We've got a fabulous startup community, and that is fueled by the fact we have so many talented people here. This is where the payoff comes from our great system of education, for whatever people criticize it. I mean, we don't realize we have one of the best systems in the world that are producing hugely talented graduates, and some more of them are staying here now setting up their own companies. And then you add to that, to be candid, the magnetism of Canada for people who are a little skeptical about what may be going on south of the border. So a really smart person from another country, like a really smart PhD that's one of the leading people in the world, they're ending up coming here more often now, and we've set up our immigration in such a way as to fast-track people like that, and that is paying huge dividends for us, these smart people coming here, because that in turn means even some of the companies from Silicon Valley are saying we better get up there to Toronto because there's so many smart people there.
In fact, New York Times, I just saw it yesterday, the article they did. Did you see that one?
Yeah.
The article at New York and Toronto are joining forces, and you were
I was down there to actually try and set up that alliance. So, for example, there are days when we'll compete with New York, but there are other days where we are going to compete together with them in a team, two sets of smart people with Silicon Valley, on the theory that, we would rather have that investment stay on the east of North America, and if we get some of that, it's good for us, and they view it the same way, because they're competing with Silicon Valley, too, for investment and for jobs and for smart people. But I think even there we have a bit of an advantage these days, because people love Toronto and they love Canada.
Okay, I'm going to go through a bunch of things here. You tell me, can you pick a highlight? Now, of course, we've had our sports wins just recently with the TFC and Argos. We've had the Vaughan subway opening. That's a pretty big deal.
The Invictus Games was a real highlight.
The pot raids that have been going on. King Street Pilot Project. And are any of those a highlight for you? Or
well, they all are, but I will have to tell you, the thing to me that was most important was that it sounds mundane to people watching, but it isn't. We got a lot of money this year, huge breakthroughs from the federal government and from the provincial government to help us build transit. And in terms of the future of this city, there is nothing more important than building the transit to fix traffic, and there's nothing more important than having the money. You can't do it if you don't have the money. The federal government came through in flying colors this year with money to fund future transit projects like the Relief Line and others. The provincial government finally came through with some money to help us repair Toronto community housing. So I would have to say, from where I sit, when you work hard on trying to get that money and have good partnerships with these governments, when they actually, cough up the dough, this is a highlight. This is the highlight.
And most definitely, I mean, that has been incredible to see the cooperation between the three levels of government.
You can't do anything without it. And before, you had these fights going on all the time. And, sure, we have our disagreements, but in the end, you've got to function in partnership with them if you want to build up this city. And I've had to sort of convince them, and it doesn't take that much convincing, that the strength and vitality and health of this city is vital to the health of Ontario and Canada. And other Canadians don't like to hear that, but it's just true. This city represents a huge piece of the economy of Canada, and if you have proper transit and proper housing, it's going to mean this city is healthier, both socially but also economically.
And there's going to be a lot of people who's going to say, I'm not better off than I was this time last year. Is Toronto better off?
Well, if you look at the measurements, I mean, unemployment is lower, the economy is growing faster, but I will concede the fact that there are still a large number of people in the city, too large, who are marginalized. And so that's why we're building transit, though. I was telling you off camera, the joy of the people who live up in the sort of northwest corner of the city, up by Jane and Finch, at having better transit available so they can get to opportunity was palpable. People were overjoyed by that. And that's why you build transit, for that reason. And so I would say that, yes, the city is definitely better off, and I think people feel that way, but we still have challenges with traffic and transit, with housing, with people who are finding finding it difficult to get a job, you know, even though there are lots of people who got one this year. So it's a challenge. It's the biggest challenge.
Still more work to be done. Don't forget, send nice Christmas greetings. John Tory.
That won't work.
Send nice greetings.
I will report back to you, ladies and gentlemen, but those who want to troll you are more prevalent than those who want to compliment you, but that's okay.
All right, and one more thing I need you to do.
What's that?
Because we're always, anytime it snows here, there's always the people out in the West Coast who are just saying, oh man, Toronto can't deal with it. Vancouver got hit with snow yesterday, and they were going crazy. Can we retaliate?
Well, no, I think what we should be doing is sending them the phone number of the defense minister and saying you better call in the armed forces to deal with that snow out there in Vancouver. They don't know how to drive in it. They don't know how to. They're worse than we are, and we can be a little crybaby-ish about that stuff. Anyway, it's winter, folks. Enjoy.